Hello all, welcome to my channel Learn in Cahoots. Today in this video is not about vocabulary, but I picked an important topic from database management system, and you can see this is normalization. So in this video I am going to discuss about normalization with you. So without any further delay, let's get started. So first thing is, what is normalization? Normalization in simple word is basically the process of removing data redundancy and column dependency. In other words, if we remove the column dependency, data redundancy will automatically be removed. Now, what is column dependency? Let me explain it. Column dependency, also known as functional dependency. Column dependency, also known as functional dependency. So functional dependency means by using the known value of one column, the corresponding value of another column can always be uniquely determined. Okay, you can see the example here in the form of a table. I have written that already. Here I have taken an example, that is address table. Here pin code, district and city, three columns are there, and pin code is primary key here. Suppose if I tell you any pin code, you can determine the city I am talking about, though I have not explicitly told you the district name. Okay, so this kind of functional dependency, where a column is dependent upon the primary key of a table, is called trivial functional dependency. You can see here trivial functional dependency, where non-key columns are dependent on the primary key column. Okay, this is column dependency. Coming back to the data redundancy, briefly, let me tell you briefly what is data redundancy. Suppose you are a social media influencer and you are asking your audience to follow you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube. So what will you say? Follow me, the links are given below. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube. You don't have to explicitly tell that this link is for Facebook, this link is for Twitter and this link is for YouTube, because in the link itself it's already there, facebook.com, youtube.com, twitter.com. so audience will automatically understand. If you explicitly mention that this link is for my Facebook, this link is for my Twitter, then that information will be redundant. That information that will be called data redundancy. Okay, now coming to the main point. So you have understood data redundancy, you have understood column dependency, what is trivial functional dependency. Now coming back to the main topic, that is normalization. In order to understand the normalization, you have to understand this small concept. So I have discussed about that. So now types of normalization. There are three types of normalization, that is first normal form, second normal form and third normal form. In first normal form only tells that there should not be any multi-valued attribute. Now in order to understand the first normal form, you have to understand what is attribute, then you can understand the multi-valued attribute. Okay, so first I will tell you what is attribute, then you can understand what is multi-valued attribute, then I will go to the first normal form. I will then discuss the first normal form. So what is attribute? Attribute means, in simple sense, columns, means which defines an entity, that is, my name is Ankita. Now which will define me? Where do I live? What do I do? How old am I? Means my address, profession, age are defining me. These columns are attribute of my name column. Okay, this these are what can I say, these are attributes of name column. Okay, now coming back to the first normal form. In first normal form, there should not be any multi-valued attribute. Now you have understood what is attribute. Now coming to the first normal form. Suppose, let's understand the multi-valued attribute with an example. Suppose there is a table. I have already written that this is employee table, and suppose in a company one employee E1, this is the employee number, one employee E1 is working simultaneously on two projects, that is project 1 and project 2. if you write in this way p1 comma p2 in the attribute project, then that should be multi-valued attribute, because instead of a single value you are defining two values simultaneously, p1 p2. Okay, so this should not be done in the first normal form. This is the wrong thing. In order to correct it, what you need to do, you will break the attribute value in multiple rows, like e1 p1 analyst, e1 p2 analyst. This is the first normal form. So whatever you understood, first normal form can be achieved by breaking the rows into multiple rows in order to get the single valued attribute. Now coming back to the second normal form. Okay, second normal form is, I have taken the example of the previous one, that is employee table. You can see here I have already achieved the first normal form. Please note that in order to achieve the second normal form, the table should be in the first normal form, because like there should not be any multi-valued attribute, then only you can apply the second normal form in that table. So I have taken the already normalized first normal form table. So employee number E1, project name P1, employee name E2, project name P2. Here you can see that employee number is defining twice. Here is also E1, here is also E1. So how to uniquely identify this table? How to uniquely identify? What can I say that this is the primary key of this table? So if you need to tell the primary key, then you need to take the combination of E1 and P1. Even combination of employee number and project name, then you can identify a row uniquely, right? So with the with only employee number, you cannot uniquely identify any row, because if you take only E1, then there is this row as well. So what rows needs to be considered, the first row or second row? You can't understand. So in order to uniquely identify a row, you need to consider the combination of employee number and project name, that is e1 p1. E1 p1 is combiningly creating a unique id. E1 p2 unique id. Okay, e1 p1 e1 p2, these are unique key or primary key, combined composite key actually. I will discuss later with this kind of keys in a later video, but today's focus is not this one. I am focusing on normalization only. Okay, so I have added with this information, already existing information, I have added one more column, that is date of joining in the company. As employee is only one I am considering, so date of joining will be one, will be single. So D1 date of joining. Okay, now you can see that role, this role is dependent on the combined composite key, like this E1 employee in the project P1 working as analyst, this E1 employee in the project P2 working as analyst, or you can say what can you say, developer. Instead of analyst I have written developer. So this role is dependent on the employee number as well as project, right? This role column is combinedly dependent on the employee number and project name. Means this analyst means this employee in the project P1 working as a analyst. Developer means this employee, E1 employee in the project P2 working as a developer. Now I have added another column, date of joining in the company. This non-key column doesn't depend on the unique combination of employee number and project name, because this date of joining in the company has no connection with the project name, right? This date of joining in the company column just depend on the employee number column. Okay, in the in the using the basic sense, you can understand that this date of joining in the company doesn't have any relation with the project name. What can be the relation between these two? What can be the relation? Nothing. This can be relatable with the employee number, because this, with this column you can tell that this employee has joined the company in this D1 date. So there's no relation with the project name and between the project name and date of joining in the company. So this table is not in the second normal form. What does second normal form tell? Second normal form tells that no non-key column, no non-key column. This is a non-key column. This is a non-key column. So no non-key column dependent on a partial primary key. Okay, so non-key column should be dependent on the fully combination of primary key. I mean, the non-key column should be dependent on the combination of the columns, which is uniquely identifying arrow. Here the primary key is combination of employee number and project name. So role column should be dependent on the combined key, and role column is doing that. There's no issue. But in the date of joining company, it's partially dependent on the primary key, not completely, because it has no relation with the project name. And employee name, project name and employee number both are part of the primary key, but date of joining in the company column is dependent on the only on the employee number. That is it has partial dependency on the primary key, right? So if you write this column as date of joining in the project, then this should be in the second normal form. Okay, so employee number, project number, analyst, date of joining in the project D1, employee number, project number, developer, date of joining D2. This is in the second normal form. Means there should not be any partial dependency of non-key column in the primary key. Here primary key is this, so every non-key column must be dependent on combinedly on these two columns, must be dependent on this key. This key means combination of the two columns which is constructing the primary key, right? Okay, now what is third normal form? Third normal form, let me write down the second normal form. E1 P1, okay, E1 P1, analyst, date of joining in the project, E1 P2, developer, date of joining in the project. So I have got up to second normal form. In order to implement the third normal form, you have to achieve up to second normal form. So similarly, in order to apply the second normal form, you have to achieve up to first normal form. Okay, now suppose you have another table called manager. And here is manager ID and name, right? M1, M2, name. Okay, now I am just taking this example of this table and adding one extra column, that is two extra column, that is manager ID, manager name. Here suppose there is another column like address, office address, or home address, anything. Okay, manager ID, manager name. So M1 this, M2 this, right? Now in the third normal form, this manager ID, if I tell you, you have already understood the functional dependency. So if I tell you manager ID is M1, you can tell what is the name of that manager. You can tell what is the name of the manager by querying the manager table, right? So In the second normal form table, in the example table, if I add manager ID and manager name both, then there is no function of this name column, right? This is the redundant data. If you add the name column, this will be the redundant information. Okay, because if I tell you that employee 1 is working on the project 1 as analyst, and he joined the project in the date atto, and the manager of this project and that employee is M1, so you always can have the manager name from the manager table, so there's no need to add the manager name in the employee table. This should be a redundant, this will be a redundant data additional column. Okay, so how to achieve the third normal form? That this is employee 1 project 1 working as analyst. Okay, analyst, and date of joining in the project D1, and the manager is M1. Employee project developer, date of joining D2, manager is M2, means manager is manager of the project P2 is this person. So he is the manager of E1 as well in for this project. So you can see manager is also dependent on the unique combination of this two key. This is primary key, so manager column is also dependent on the primary key, not this is not partial dependency. Manager is not dependent on the only on the employee or only in the project. No, he this is dependent on the primary key, that is combination of the two key. Okay, so by removing the name column, you have achieved the third normal form. Okay, so what does third normal form tell? Third normal form tells there should not be any functional dependencies between non-key columns. All dependency will be with the primary key. Okay, so this is the non-key column is this doesn't depend on the date column or manager column. Similarly, manager column doesn't depend on the date column and role column, right? So every non-key column must be dependent only on the primary key. If primary key is a combination of two column, then on all the non-key columns should dependent on the combination, should be dependent on the combination, not partial but fully dependent. Okay, and this is the third normal form. So I hope you have understand the concept of normalization. If there's still any problem, let me know in the comment section. I will try to explain it more. So there's nothing more from my side today. Okay, so bye.